I used to work the night shift at a small private hospital in a rural town in Pennsylvania. It wasn't a big facility, 3 floors, maybe 50 patients at most. My role was more administrative than medical. I stayed at the front desk, checked in the occasional emergency walk-in, monitored the cameras, and responded to calls from the rooms if the nurses were tied up. It was usually dead quiet, especially between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Those hours stretched like molasses, and I had to fight not to fall asleep some nights. But there was this one night. It started like any other. Cold coffee, too many yawns, and the occasional beep from a heart monitor echoing faintly down the hallways. At around 2:30 a.m., the cameras went static for about 5 seconds. Nothing too unusual. The system was old, and storms in the area tended to knock out feeds temporarily. But when the cameras came back on, I noticed something that made my stomach clench. One of the hallway cameras on the 3rd floor, the floor with the long-term patients, showed a person standing completely still at the far end of the hallway. That part of the floor had no patient rooms, just a locked supply closet and a closed-off wing undergoing renovation. The figure wasn't moving, not an inch. At first, I assumed it was a nurse, but when I radioed the 3rd floor nurse station to check, they responded almost instantly. "We're all accounted for. No one's down that hall." I looked back at the monitor. The figure was gone. I don't scare easy, but that night something felt off in a way I can't explain. I replayed the footage from before the static. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Then the screen fuzzed and boom, the figure just appeared, like it had stepped out of nowhere. I tried to calm myself by doing a round through the building. That's what we were supposed to do anyway, walk the halls every hour or so. I started from the 1st floor, making my way up, flashlight in hand, shoes echoing in the quiet. When I got to the 3rd floor, everything seemed wrong. The lights were dimmer than usual, not flickering, just dim, like the power was being slowly drained. And it was colder, much colder. My breath fogged up in the air. I walked toward the end of the hallway where I saw the figure. The supply closet door was wide open. That door is supposed to stay locked. I called it in and the nurse replied, "It's never opened. There's nothing in there right now. It's being cleared out." I approached the closet and looked inside. It was pitch black. Even with the flashlight, I couldn't see past a few feet in. It wasn't just darkness. It was thick, like smoke. But there was no smell, no particles, just this unnatural void. Then I heard breathing. Not mine, not from the hall, from inside the closet. It was this slow, wet, shuddering sound, like something struggling to breathe underwater. I froze. I could feel something in that closet. Not just see it, not just hear it. Feel it, like it was watching me from the dark. Then the flashlight flickered, for just a second. But when it came back on, there was a hand on the edge of the doorframe. Pale, long fingers, dirty nails. I didn't wait. I ran back down to the desk and locked myself in the admin office. I watched the monitors like my life depended on it, switching between feeds, trying to spot where that thing had gone. But there was nothing. I didn't report it. Who would believe me? But that wasn't the last time. Over the next few weeks, small things started happening. Lights flickering in the patient rooms with no electrical explanation. Patients claiming to see people in their rooms at night. A tall man with no face, or a woman with black eyes crawling on the ceiling. Most of them were medicated or in poor health, so it was easy to dismiss. But then a nurse disappeared. Her name was Claire. She worked nights with me sometimes, always upbeat, always punctual. One night she clocked in, did her rounds, and never clocked out. They checked the entire hospital, top to bottom, every room. Security footage was reviewed. She was seen walking into the supply closet on the 3rd floor, but she never came back out. The camera froze right after she entered. And then, just static. They called the police, of course, but the room was empty. No blood, no signs of struggle. It was like she vanished into thin air. Her car was still in the lot, her purse still at the nurse station. After that, the hospital quietly shut down that wing for good. The supply closet was sealed. I heard rumors that upper management brought in some private team, people who weren't cops or medics. Paranormal experts, maybe. No one knew for sure. They stopped asking questions. And we were all told to keep our mouths shut. But I still work there. still do night shifts, and sometimes, when I'm walking the third floor for rounds, I pass that sealed closet, and I swear I can hear her, Claire, whispering, crying, or something that sounds like her. Last night I passed by it again. There were scratch marks around the edges of the door, deep, ragged, desperate. And this time, there were fingerprints on the inside of the glass panel above it. Pale, long fingers, dirty nails. Exactly like before. I don't know what's behind that door. I don't want to know. But I've started dreaming about it. And in the dream, the door is always open. And something is waiting for me inside. I used to work the night shift at a gas station off Highway 47, in a part of the state where people disappear and no one really asks questions. It wasn't a big store, just 4 pumps, a dirty little shop with a cooler full of expired soda, and a back room where you could sit, smoke, and stare at grainy security footage. The kind of place truckers stop for coffee and locals avoid after dark. It was boring most nights. I'd clock in at 10, mop up some spilled coffee, maybe sell a pack of cigarettes to the same 3 guys. But every once in a while, something happened that reminded me why the guy before me quit mid-shift and left his name tag on the register. It was a Tuesday night. Cold and foggy, the kind of night that feels like the world is holding its breath. I had just refilled the coffee machine and was settling in to eat some microwave noodles when the door chimed. No one was there. That wasn't too unusual. The sensor sometimes went off when the wind hit the door just right. But then it chimed again. I walked to the door and looked out. Fog, dense, thick, swallowing the world beyond the pumps. I couldn't even see the street. But I swear, just as I turned to go back inside, I saw movement. A figure standing between pumps 2 and 3. No car, no sound, just standing, facing the store. I went back to the register and looked at the security monitor. The feed was there, grainy as always, but the pumps were empty. Nothing, not even static. Then the lights above pump 3 flickered. I grabbed the microphone and turned on the outside speaker. "You all right out there?" No answer. Nothing but a hiss of feedback. I walked out to check. The cold hit me hard and the fog was like walking through wet cotton. I could barely see a few feet ahead, but I made it to pump 3. Nobody. No footprints, no tire marks. But the pump handle was swinging, gently like it had just been used. I went back inside. I was shaken, but not scared. Yet. Strange things happen out there. Meth heads, hitchhikers, weirdos. It comes with the job. But then something happened that didn't make sense. The register beeped. An item rang up. I looked down. The screen read, "Item, gasoline, pump 3, 0.0. My stomach dropped. I hadn't authorized anything. No one had swiped a card. But somehow, the system logged a transaction. I checked the drawer. Cold air blew out from inside it like it had been sitting open in a freezer. I shut it fast and locked the register. Then the power flickered. The lights buzzed and dimmed. The coffee machine sputtered. One of the cooler doors popped open on its own. And then the chime again. I looked up, and the door was open. Wide open. The fog hadn't cleared at all, but something was standing just outside. A silhouette. Thin. Too tall. Its arms hung almost to its knees. I reached for the panic button under the register, but it didn't work. I hit it again. Nothing. The figure stepped inside, but it didn't walk. It glided. And I swear, I could feel the temperature drop 10 degrees instantly. Its head was tilted. Its face, God, I don't even know if it had one. It was like smoke inside a hood. Swirling darkness. No eyes. No mouth. Just a pulsing void. I backed away. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just stood there frozen as it floated past the counter and into the back room. Then the cameras all went black. Every feed. Gone. The lights above me flickered again, then went out completely. I was in pitch black, the kind of dark where your brain starts inventing shapes. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and shined it toward the back room. The door was open, but nothing was there. I heard something. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Heavy. like something with lungs full of water was hiding just beyond the light. I ran out of the store, didn't lock it, didn't grab my jacket, just ran straight into the fog to my car and peeled out of that parking lot so fast I nearly clipped the stop sign at the highway entrance. I didn't quit. Not that night. I needed the job. But I refused to work alone again. A few nights later, I convinced my friend Dylan to hang out with me during my shift. He didn't believe the story, thought I was screwing with him. I kind of hoped I was screwing with myself too. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I fell asleep and dreamed it. But Dylan saw it too. Around 3:12 a.m., the cameras flickered again. Then the pump 3 light blinked, and the register beeped. Dylan looked at me, eyes wide. "You messing with me?" "No," I said. "I wish I was." Then the power cut again. Same as before. Only this time, the thing didn't come to the door. It was already inside. We saw it in the mirror behind the register. Just standing there, a foot behind us. No footsteps. No sound. We didn't even hear the chime. When we turned around, it was gone. But the smell lingered. It smelled like wet dirt, like something had been pulled out of a flooded grave. We stayed outside the rest of the shift. A few weeks later, the station shut down temporarily. Upgrades, they said, but I overheard the owner talking to someone on the phone. He said, "It's happening again, same as '98. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. I quit a month later. Dylan did too. We don't talk about that night much, but sometimes when we drive past that stretch of road, he'll look out the window and say, 'You smell that?' And I do. That grave dirt smell, like something waiting to be seen again, something that doesn't walk, doesn't speak, but always comes back to pump 3. I've never told anyone what happened on the last night I worked at the old assisted living center. I was a night nurse, 29 years old, newly divorced, and desperately in need of a quiet job that didn't require too much human interaction. When I got the offer to work the night shift at Rosehill Manor, I didn't think twice. The place was ancient, tucked away at the edge of town, surrounded by crooked trees and withered gardens. But it paid well, and it was quiet. Too quiet. Most nights the halls were empty after 9 p.m. The patients were all asleep or too sedated to wander. I'd make my rounds, check the vitals, jot my notes, and then retreat to the tiny office on the 3rd floor where I'd sip lukewarm tea and scroll my phone until sunrise. But on my last night, something was off. It started with the intercom. Around 1:03 a.m., the speaker crackled to life. "Room 308, it said. That was all. Just the room number. In a voice I didn't recognize. I stared at the speaker for a moment, waiting to hear it again, but it stayed silent. I checked the room log. 308 was empty. The last resident had died 2 months ago, and it hadn't been reassigned yet. Maintenance hadn't even cleaned it out. It was locked, unused, cold. I chalked it up to interference and went back to my notes. Then, at 1:07, the call light for 308 turned on. I froze. Those lights only triggered if someone pressed the red button inside the room. No one should have been in there. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, the wheels squealing louder than usual, like the cables were straining. The moment the doors slid open, I felt it. Cold air, sharp and dry. Not like the usual AC. It was the kind of cold that felt wrong, like walking into a freezer full of spoiled meat. I stepped into the hallway and looked toward room 308. The door was slightly open. I hadn't unlocked it. I approached slowly, flashlight in hand. My fingers trembled as I reached for the knob, gently pushing it open. The room inside was dark, untouched, just as it had been left. Dust on the bed rails, sheets folded, blinds drawn. But something was standing in the corner. It looked like a patient. Thin, pale arms. Hospital gown. Back turned. "Sir?" I said, trying to sound steady. "You're not supposed to be in here." No response. I stepped closer. "Do you need help?" Still nothing. I flicked the flashlight upward and pointed it at the figure. There was no face, just smooth, pale skin where the features should have been. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. But I swear it turned slightly, like it could hear me. I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut and running back down the hallway. When I got back to the office, I locked the door and stared at the monitor for room 308. There was no video feed. Static. Then all the lights in the hallway outside my office turned off at once. I heard footsteps. Slow, dragging, getting closer. I turned off the lamp, sat in the dark, and held my breath. The footsteps stopped just outside my door. Something brushed against it. Not a knock. More like a slow scrape. Fingernails? Bone? Then silence. I stayed there until 2:37 a.m. The hallway lights flickered back on by themselves. The static on the 308 monitor returned to a black screen. The call light shut off. I thought about calling someone. The police, the head nurse? But what would I even say? That a faceless man had appeared in a room that shouldn't be open? I was about to step out when the overhead intercom buzzed again. Room 310, it said this time. The next room over, that one was occupied. An old man named Mr. Halberd, bedridden, couldn't speak. He'd been nonverbal for years after a stroke. I had checked on him around midnight. He was asleep. I forced myself to go. If someone or something had gotten into his room, I had to help him. The hallway outside the office was quiet now. Too quiet. I made it to 310 and opened the door. He was sitting up, Mr. Halberd, eyes wide open. He looked at me and whispered, clear as day, "It's crawling through the walls." I froze. He hadn't spoken in years. "What is?" I asked. He turned his head slowly toward the corner of the room, the wall between 310 and 308. "It wears their skin," he said. And then he started screaming like his lungs were tearing apart. I tried to calm him down, but he was thrashing, eyes rolling back, mouth foaming. I hit the emergency button and called for help on the radio. No response. I turned to the hallway and the lights went out again, except this time, they didn't come back. Just total darkness. I dragged Mr. Halberd's bed away from the wall and positioned myself between him and whatever was behind it. I felt the cold again, that sharp, wrong kind of cold. And then I heard it, crawling, inside the wall. It wasn't a rat, it wasn't a pipe. It was too heavy, like knees and elbows grinding against wood, like bone-scratching drywall. I pulled out my flashlight. Just as I turned it on, the wall behind the bed cracked, a long, deep fracture, and something slid through. An arm, pale, boneless, like a glove without a hand inside. It reached toward the bed. I lost it. I grabbed Mr. Halberd and wheeled him out of the room, pushing through the dark like a blind man in a nightmare. Something chased us. I didn't see it, but I heard it. It was fast now, loud, scraping against the walls, echoing through the vents. A deep animal growl followed me all the way to the elevator. When I slammed the button, nothing happened. It didn't work. I turned and pushed him toward the stairwell. The moment I opened the door, I heard it shriek. Not from behind me, but from above. It was waiting in the stairwell. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and barricaded us in the hallway with a rolling cabinet. I sat there with Mr. Halberd for over an hour, holding his hand while he sobbed and whispered nonsense. Eventually, the lights came back on. The cameras rebooted. Room 308's monitor showed an empty bed. No reports were ever filed. No one believed me. When the morning nurse arrived, everything looked normal, except Mr. Halberd. He never spoke again. His brief moment of clarity was gone. They said he died 2 nights later in his sleep, peaceful and quiet. But I know better. He saw something, same as I did. I quit the next day. No notice. No explanation. Just a resignation letter and a ride out of town. To this day, I don't go near nursing homes. I don't work night shifts. And I never, ever ignore a call light from an empty room. Because sometimes they're not empty. And sometimes they remember your face.